Being an adult is terrible. I mean, it really is. And this is something that nobody seems to want to tell you when you're a kid. I mean, don't get me wrong, we hint at it. We say things like enjoy your youth while you can. And I guess they were trying to preserve my innocence because all throughout my adolescence, I never received a true explanation as to why life in the single digits is such a paradise. You know, I never had that conversation where they explained to me that I get to work the first 4 months out of each and every single year just to pay my taxes. So much for financial independence. You know, I never had anybody sit me down, tell me what it was going to be like to lie awake alone at night, feeling like you're not doing this whole life thing right. And that sinking feeling when you start to believe that everybody around you is secretly disappointed in you. You know, that cliche 20-something experience that's so much fun to try and fight out in your own head. But out of all the things that caught me by surprise growing up, I think the most shocking of all of them was the realization of just how difficult, if not impossible, it is to try and change the world as I was told I could as a kid. Turns out not everybody can be president. I don't know, maybe they forgot to factor in the stubbornness of men when they told me that I was going to single-handedly bring us all back to who God created us to be. And I know, admittedly, that's a hyperbole, but it felt like it was within the scope of possibility back in those days when life held such simplicity. Those days I really just want to go back to. I want to go back to a time before I knew that dandelions are weeds. And I know that may seem silly, but hear me out. I want to go back to those moments when everything had its own individual beauty that wasn't determined by how it was able to compare to something else. Who knows, maybe if I was able to maintain that mentality, I wouldn't feel so insecure hanging out with all the other 20-somethings. The ones that seem to have their life together already with their successful careers and their beautiful families. You know, I want to go back to the days when it felt like the whole world sat right here in the palm of my hand. And the most difficult decision I was facing is, do I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a fireman? Really, I just want to be a kid again. And trust me, I know that I can no longer hide under the guise of being a child, no matter how badly I want to shelter under the shadow of that excuse. I know that I share in the collective responsibility of steering this ship towards God's true north, but really, with so many hands at the helm, I'm wondering, are we deciding our direction at all? Because it kind of feels like the storms surrounding this silly planet and all the politicians that are still trying to control all of it, they're tossing us about. Kind of like a ship being thrown around according to whatever way the winds and the waves happen to play today. It's kind of like a couple of toddlers sharing a tub together, their mood determining just how much water has to be mopped up off the floor when they're gone. I think that's a pretty accurate way of describing political discourse. It kind of feels like we're all afloat in some aimless raft, and it's because we dismantled our rudder in order to build a soapbox that stands just a little bit taller than the guy to our left. Who knows, maybe if I can scream loud enough from my newly perched position, I can convince the rest to steer this ship towards my desired destination. You know, I used to work at this preschool, and I remember watching children debating over a ball and how you're supposed to properly play with it, all while their recess slowly slipped away. And right before the bell signaled the end of their discussion, the most cunning of all of them slips in his long-saved statement of truth. You know, the one that's seemingly safe from anyone's capability to present a rebuttal. And then, staring very smugly at all their shocked and silent expressions, he claims victory. He claims superiority through his ability to appear right. And all of this, of course, in time for it to help no one. And then I remember watching that child as he walked off the Senate floor so he could go downtown, head to the bar, and share his story of political prowess with anyone willing to sit still for just a few seconds. Now listen, I'm not advocating for aimless or ill-planned actions. I'm just stating that our great plague is the fact that we are truly desperate to be the one that is right, and it's costing us our lives. You know, the spotlight was designed to give strength to guidance. It was never intended to illuminate opinions. And all throughout the years, we've been warned to steer clear of every single false god that man has invented. But I think we fail to see that the idol standing in the center of our shrine is ourselves. I think we're inherently prideful. And I've heard it stated that fear will stay your feet and prevent you from walking out the plan that God has for you. But I know that pride will warp that journey, and I'm failing to see the value of forward motion when it's on a corrupted path that keeps us circling back to the same position we've always been in. I've been thinking about honor a lot lately. And I guess I'm beginning to see how honored I truly am, because I've had the opportunity to see humility displayed to the purest degree. His name is Jesus Christ. And he stands in clothes that are stained scarlet by the beautiful pain that was flowing from his veins. The king who, without belittling the validity of his identity, chose to lay aside his rights, his supremacy, and all of it for the sake of an idolater like me. Man, so esteemed in the eyes of Christ I am. So esteemed in the eyes of Christ are we. I'm really beginning to believe that the only way to get this ship steered towards our brilliant and beautiful star set north, that one that is outshining the rest, is by displaying the humility that we've seen in our King. We have to willingly lay aside our longing to reign supreme over the beings that we're commanded to love as ourselves. And if we will do that, I know that we'll reflect the light of the only unchanging, unwavering star, so the rest can come to see as we see that it is Christ in us that is the hope of our glory. Because in the end, my voice, our voice, can never shine as loud as his light.